Hi, I'm Jennifer. In this video, you'll have the chance to study grammar at length. Grammar is the backbone of language. It gives structure and organization to all our ideas so that we can understand one another. Grammar allows clear communication. Like a kid playing with blocks, you get better with practice. You can build bigger, better, and more creative things when you understand how to work with the different pieces. Yes, this is a long video, but you don't have to watch it all at once. Study while your mind is fresh. Take a break when you need one. Your watch history will help you find your place when you come back to study more. Let's start with the parts of speech. Then we'll look at words, phrases, and clauses. This will lead into how we build sentences. I've added a more detailed look at certain sentence elements as well. Enjoy. Tell me, what's the best vacation you ever had? Here are some photos from one of my more recent family vacations. Do you recognize any of the places? People say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And while it's true that an image can be very powerful, photos can't completely replace daily communication like email and phone calls. And no university professor is going to accept a photo instead of a written essay, just as no boss is going to accept a series of photos instead of a written report. We have to use words like these. And we have to put them in the right order to build sentences. Understanding syntax helps me build this sentence. Last summer, my family visited a few national parks in South Dakota and Wyoming. Knowing how to put words in the proper order is called syntax. If you want to be effective in your communication, take the time to learn syntax. To help you, I'm going to review all the parts of speech in English. We'll break each category down, and I'll give plenty of examples. This lesson will be about how words function in a sentence. If you understand the function of a word, you'll be more confident about the word order in every sentence you say or write. Let's start. I don't want to overwhelm you with terminology, so we'll break this lesson into 3 parts. In part 1, we'll talk about nouns, pronouns, and determiners. In part 2, we'll look at verbs, adjectives, and conjunctions. And in part 3, we'll look at adverbs, prepositions, and interjections. I should note that some sources don't include determiners. That's why you may hear about 8 parts of speech rather than 9. I feel determiners are important, and I'd like you to understand what they are and what they do. So I'm including determiners in my list. Let's begin our review. Every conversation is about something or someone. We need to talk about people and things, so we use nouns. Nouns are the subjects of our sentences. South Dakota is in the Midwest. Buffalo are large animals. Tourists love nature and wildlife. Tourism is important to South Dakota. President George Washington is one of the 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. Nouns can be people, places, animals, or things, either concrete or abstract. As subjects, nouns can begin a sentence. Proper nouns are names of specific people and things. Proper nouns must be capitalized. Common nouns are names of everyday things. These nouns are not capitalized. Here's another way to look at nouns. They can either be countable or uncountable. This is important to understand because the number of things influences other word forms in a sentence. Here's a quick check. Can you sort the nouns into 2 groups? Countable and uncountable. Here are the answers. If you need more practice, you can watch my lessons on countable and uncountable nouns. I'll put the links in the video description. If a noun is countable, we can use either the singular or plural form. Plural nouns can be either regular or irregular. I'll include a link to an older lesson that I have on the pronunciation of regular plural endings, s and es. Tourists is an example of a regular plural noun. Buffalo is an example of an irregular plural noun. We can also talk about collective nouns. They refer to a group, but collective nouns function as singular nouns. At least that's true of American English. Family is a good example. My family likes traveling to new places. We haven't talked about all the parts of speech yet, but I need to state briefly now that nouns can also function as objects. That means that nouns can also follow verbs and prepositions. Tourists love nature and wildlife. The object of a verb is called a direct object. South Dakota is in the Midwest. When we speak or write at length, we don't usually repeat the same noun over and over again. Buffalo are large animals. Buffalo can run very fast, and when buffalo run, buffalo are very dangerous. That sounded wordy, right? Instead, we use pronouns. Pronouns are words that replace nouns, so we sound less repetitive. We can only use pronouns when the reference is clear. So first we use a noun, and as we continue to speak or write, we can refer back to that person or thing with a pronoun. Buffalo are large animals. They can run very fast, and when they do, they're very dangerous. Pronouns can be subjects or objects, just like nouns. My family saw a lot of buffalo at Custer State Park. We took a lot of photos and videos of them. Let's talk about personal pronouns first. Subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Object pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, them. We also have possessive pronouns: mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, theirs. Can you identify the types of pronouns I'm using? Do you understand what each pronoun refers back to? Look. Here's an interesting note. The subject pronoun it doesn't always refer back to something. It can be a dummy subject. It's just a placeholder. Sometimes we need the subject pronoun to make a statement about something that simply is. It's 3 o'clock. It's cold outside. It's time to go. We also have reflexive pronouns: myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, themselves. And we have demonstrative pronouns: this, that, these, and those. Demonstrative pronouns can easily function as subjects or objects. This is fun. I love this. But reflexive pronouns are a bit different. They can be objects. For example, I took a picture of myself in front of Mount Rushmore. We enjoyed ourselves immensely. Reflexive pronouns can also help us emphasize a subject. For example, I myself never thought I would be so excited by a herd of buffalo. Do you know what reciprocal pronouns are? Don't worry if you don't know the term. I bet you know these pronouns. It's a very short list. Each other, one another. Reciprocal pronouns help us explain actions that are given and received equally. For instance, after the herd of buffalo passed, we looked at one another and laughed with delight. And finally, we have relative pronouns like who, which, and that. I hope you've watched my series on adjective clauses to understand how relative pronouns function within a sentence. Okay, we've covered nouns and pronouns. Let's take the time to talk about determiners. Before I start naming different determiners, let me show you some more photos from my family vacation. Here's a prairie dog village. See the many prairie dog holes? There's one prairie dog. Here's my photo of a prairie dog. Look at those prairie dogs. Determiners tend to be short words that help us determine what or who we're talking about. We place a determiner before a noun. Determiners include articles, numbers and quantifiers, demonstrative determiners, and possessive determiners. Articles include the indefinite article and the definite article. As for the indefinite article, remember we use a before a consonant sound and an before a vowel sound. As for the definite article, we say the before a consonant sound and the before a vowel sound. Sometimes we use no article, so we can talk about a zero article. I have a series of lessons on articles, so you may want to check out the video description for those links. Numbers and quantifiers help us talk about how much or how many. Some quantifiers can only be used with countable nouns, like many and several. Other quantifiers can only be used with uncountable nouns, like much and a little. Demonstrative determiners are also called demonstrative adjectives. You know these words: this, that, these, those. Remember, we use this and these for things that are close to us in time or space. We use that and those for things that are more distant. We've already talked about that, this, these, and those as pronouns, so you can see that some words fit into more than one word class. Finally, we have possessive determiners, which some call possessive adjectives. They include my, your, his, her, its, our, their. Help me build some sentences with determiners. Put the missing words in the right place. Note that once we put a determiner together with a noun, we have a phrase. A phrase is a group of words that functions as a unit in a sentence. For example, we can have a noun phrase. That noun phrase can be a subject or an object. For example, in sentence 1, my daughter is the object of a preposition. Okay, I think that's a pretty good start. We'll continue with more parts of speech in part 2. If you're eager to continue this grammar lesson, please like this video. There are 9 parts of speech that I'd like to cover. Do you remember how I decided to break this lesson down? In part 1, we talked about nouns, pronouns, and determiners. In part 2, we'll talk about verbs, adjectives, and conjunctions. And in part 3, we'll look at adverbs, prepositions, and interjections. I'm excited to look at more grammar with you, so let's get started on part 2. Do you remember where my family went last summer? My family flew to South Dakota. We rented a car at the airport. Our hotel was close to Mount Rushmore. We know that nouns and pronouns help us talk about people and things. Determiners allow us to be more specific. But we can't build sentences with only a subject. Every sentence must have a verb. Can you identify the subject and verb in each sentence? Verbs can express an action or a state. So we have action and non-action verbs. You may hear the term stative verb for verbs that refer to a state. Let's stick with action and non-action verbs. Can you tell the difference between the two? Which verbs are action verbs? Was is a form of be. It's a non-action verb. It refers to a state. It's important to understand and recognize the difference because you don't normally use non-action verbs in progressive verb forms. In terms of syntax and statement word order, a verb follows a subject. Subject plus verb. We visited national parks and a few museums. Verbs have different endings that agree with the subject. This is called subject-verb agreement. When verbs follow a predictable pattern, we call them regular verbs. For example, I fly, you fly, she flies, or I rent, you rent, she rents. When verbs don't follow this predictable pattern, we call them irregular verbs. For example, I am, you are, she is. My children helped me cover some of the irregular verbs in English. You can see those lessons in the Kid to Kid English series. I'll put the link in the video description. Action verbs break down further into two groups, depending on whether they take an object or not. Transitive verbs require an object. For example, rent a car, visit national parks. Intransitive verbs don't require an object. For example, fly. Some verbs have transitive and intransitive meanings. We drove our rental car from South Dakota to Wyoming. My husband drove fast on the open highway. When it comes to transitive verbs, something you have to be careful about is the kind of object a verb can take. Some verbs are only followed by an infinitive. That's a two-part verb form with to plus the base verb. To fly, to rent, to visit. Some verbs are only followed by a gerund. That's the ing form. Driving, flying, visiting. I have an older lesson on transitive verbs that can be followed by either an infinitive or a gerund, but your choice changes the meaning. I'll put that link in the video description. Gerunds are special because we form them from verbs, but once we put on that ing ending, the word functions as a noun. So a gerund can be a subject, an object, or a complement. What's a complement? Well, let's go back to non-action verbs for a moment. You'll hear teachers talk about linking verbs. These are verbs that link the subject to a complement. We became excited. We felt tired after the long drive to Wyoming. The road trip seemed endless. Devil's Tower is a national monument. Subject complements are often adjectives or nouns. They define the subject or complete its meaning. Linking verbs include be, become, appear, seem, smell, feel, look, sound, taste. Here's another group of verbs, auxiliary verbs, but I prefer the shorter term, helping verbs. We use helping verbs to form questions and make negative sentences in simple tenses. Did you have fun? The tower didn't look so big in photos, but it really is. Does it really look like a bear clawed its sides? Notice in those examples how the helping verb changes form to agree with the subject and reflect the time period. But the main verb remains a base verb. It doesn't change. We can also use helping verbs for emphasis. I know you aren't going to South Dakota or Wyoming anytime soon, but if you ever do decide to go, I'll give you some good tips. Perhaps we can look more in detail at this use of helping verbs in a future video. In progressive verb forms, we use the helping verb be. We were drinking water constantly because the weather was so hot. Now we're considering another family trip. Progressive verb forms use be plus the present participle. That's the ing form. In perfect verb forms, we use the helping verb have. Have you ever heard of the Wind Cave National Park? I've taken my children to visit a few different caves. Perfect verb forms use have plus a past participle. That's the ed form of a regular verb or the third form of an irregular verb, such as eat, ate, eaten, I've eaten, I'd eaten. To review all verb tenses in English, check out my playlist on this topic. I'll include the link in the video description. Let's talk about a very important group of helping verbs, modal verbs. Modal verbs like will help us talk about future events or actions. Modals like would and could help us form conditional sentences. Modal verbs do not change form to agree with the subject and number. The same form of a modal verb is used for all subjects. I must, you must, he must. Modal verbs will have to be a whole other series of lessons because there are many uses. If you want me to cover modal verbs, please like this video so I know that you like grammar and you value my grammar lessons. A quick overview of modal verbs is that they combine with a main verb to express different ideas. For example, necessity, certainty, and ability. With modal verbs, we can give advice, give permission or a warning, make guesses or express possibilities, and more. Check out the video description for a link to a lesson I have on modal verbs and past possibilities. A final way to categorize verbs is to talk about active and passive verbs. This is a broad topic, but basically active verbs focus on the doer of the action, the one who performs the action. Passive verbs shift the focus to the receiver of the action. Active verbs have an object. Tourists visit the Badlands throughout the year. Passive verbs take that object and make it the subject of the sentence. The Badlands are visited by tourists throughout the year. We usually form the passive with the helping verb be and then the past participle. This is our main verb. The past participle is the ed form of a regular verb or the third form of an irregular verb, like eat, ate, eaten. It's possible to form the passive with other helping verbs like get. Get can sound more formal, or get in the passive can express the start of some state. No one got injured. Our flight wasn't delayed. A special group of passive verbs are the verbs we use to form the stative passive. The stative passive uses a similar structure, but the meaning doesn't imply that an action was received. We use the stative passive to express a state in detail. The Badlands National Park is located in South Dakota. The park is comprised of beautiful rock formations. So we still have the helping verb be and a past participle, but no one performed an action. We're talking about states in these stative passive examples. We're talking about location and composition. If you'd like more practice with the stative passive, I'll include the link to that lesson in the video description. I mentioned in part 1 that some words can belong to more than one word class. That's true of some verbs and adjectives. Consider the word injured. You can't always tell by looking at a word what part of speech it is. You need to know what meaning or meanings the word has. How many ways can the word function in a sentence? On the one hand, I can say, no one got injured. Got injured is my verb. It's a passive verb. On the other hand, I can talk about an injured hiker. Then, I'm using injured as an adjective. I can easily tell that an injured hiker, injured is an adjective because adjectives often come before nouns. When adjectives come before nouns, they become part of the noun phrase. That bit of knowledge will help you form sentences correctly. So let's talk more in detail about adjectives. Adjectives describe nouns or pronouns. They answer the question, what kind, or perhaps which one. If you remember what adjectives do and what questions they answer, you'll be able to tell the difference between participles used as adjectives and participles used as verbs. Do you see the difference? Take a look. We looked at the sculpted faces. The artist had sculpted a model first. The tour of the cave wasn't boring. In these examples, I'm using participles as adjectives. Some people call them participial adjectives. We can call them ed and ing adjectives. We form these words from verbs, but they behave as adjectives. The ed adjectives have a passive meaning, and they generally focus on people's feelings or states. How do you feel? Tired, bored, surprised. The ing adjectives have an active meaning and generally focus on the impact or effect something or someone can have. What's it like? Amazing, interesting, boring, exciting. Participial adjectives, like any adjective, can have different positions in a sentence. Let's talk more about this. I said that adjectives often come before nouns. When they do, we call them attributive adjectives. Here are some examples. A big chair. A wild animal. A long car ride. Some adjectives like big and long are commonly used before nouns. Other nouns tend to follow verbs, so we use them as subject complements after linking verbs. I was afraid when the buffalo came close. It was important to remain quiet in the car. These adjectives are called predicative adjectives. They're not part of the subject, they're part of the predicate. Adjectives can help us make comparisons. That's when we use comparative and superlative adjectives. Comparative adjectives are used for comparing two things or two people. The adult buffalo were darker than the young buffalo. I found the Badlands to be more interesting than the Grand Canyon. Superlative adjectives allow us to name one person or thing that is above or below all others in some way. The best family vacation ever. The hottest day ever. Comparative and superlative adjectives are usually formed from qualitative adjectives, adjectives that describe a quality. For that reason, they're also called descriptive adjectives. We usually don't have comparative and superlative forms of classifying adjectives. For example, a national park. We don't talk about one park being more national than another. It's just a type of park, a national park. Maybe one park is more interesting than another, but certainly not more or less national. With more than one quality, we need to know the order of adjectives. We usually follow this pattern:
opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material.
Some sources may recommend a slightly different pattern, but there won't be too much variation from the pattern I just showed you. Most everyone would agree with the word order in the following phrases. A beautiful blue sky. Amazing purple rock formations. A dark, narrow passage. We can also have a noun before another noun, as in a family car. Family behaves like an adjective describing car. We call it a noun modifier, and it goes last on our list. We can use other combinations to form compound adjectives. They include a noun plus adjective, adjective plus noun, noun plus past participle, noun plus present participle, number plus noun. I'll place links to my lessons on adjectives, especially the lesson on the order of adjectives, in the video description. Some put determiners in with adjectives, and while there's overlap with demonstrative adjectives and possessive adjectives, I think overall the role of determiners is a bit different. Determiners are less about qualities and classification, and more about specifying what or who we're talking about. Let's move on to another part of speech, conjunctions. Conjunctions are connecting words, words that join. And is the most common example. And belongs to a group known as coordinating conjunctions. Without going into too much detail about sentence types, I'll tell you that coordinating conjunctions allow us to join two complete ideas together and form a compound sentence. Coordinating conjunctions are often memorized with the help of an acronym: fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. For example, it was a hot day, but I enjoyed our visit to Devil's Tower. For now, let's not look at whole sentences. Let's look at shorter examples. My children and I bought souvenirs at the gift shop. I'd say that Mount Rushmore or Custer State Park made the biggest impression on me. You can buy your lunch at Custer State Park or bring your lunch with you and have a picnic. Correlative conjunctions work in pairs. Neither my son nor my daughter wanted to walk around for very long in the heat. You can either drive through the park or get out and explore the trails. If you've watched my lesson on types of clauses, you'll recall another kind of conjunction: subordinating conjunctions. These words allow us to form complex sentences where one idea is dependent on another. You can watch that lesson to review and understand the use of subordinating conjunctions like if, because, and when. Because we stayed for only a few days, we tried to do a lot every day. If you ever visit South Dakota, I recommend stopping at Wall Drug Store. When you enter Wall Drug, you quickly find out that it's much more than a store. Subordinating conjunctions help form adverb clauses. You'll have a better understanding of adverb clauses if we first talk about adverbs. That's what we'll do in Part 3. Hi everyone, it's Jennifer. Are you ready to finish our look at the parts of speech in English? Let's review what we've talked about so far. As we look at each part of speech, we identify two things: function and placement. We look at what a word does and where it goes in a sentence. We looked at nouns as subjects, objects, and complements. In statements, the word order is subject plus verb. My family traveled. Objects can follow a verb or a preposition. We visited national and state parks. Complements follow linking verbs.
First on our stop was Mount Rushmore.
We know that pronouns can replace nouns and function the same way in a sentence. Do you know the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore? Can you name them? Determiners help us specify what or who we're talking about. Determiners go before a noun or before a pronoun, as in a monument, the president's, the one on the left. Verbs express an action or a state. Verbs usually follow a subject, but in a question, we invert the word order or switch them. Usually it's a helping verb that comes first. For example, do you know Mount Rushmore? Some verbs are transitive and take an object, as in, we visited South Dakota. Some verbs are linking verbs and they link a complement to a subject, as in, Mount Rushmore was beautiful. Beautiful is an example of an adjective. Adjectives describe nouns and pronouns, meaning people or things. Adjectives can appear before a noun or after a linking verb. We saw lots of big buffalo. The prairie dogs were cute. Remember the order in a noun phrase: determiner, adjective, and then noun. Adjectives follow determiners and never go before, as in lots of big buffalo, those cute prairie dogs. Conjunctions are words that join. We can build phrases, lists, and longer sentences with the help of conjunctions. The prairie dogs often stay underground, but they come out of their holes throughout the day. When they appear, it's not easy to see them because they blend in with their environment. We not only saw prairie dogs, but we also encountered bighorn sheep on the road. In part 3, we'll now look at the remaining parts of speech: adverbs, prepositions, and interjections. Adverbs can modify or give more information about verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Adverbs are often single words like suddenly, but they can also be a phrase like of course. Adverbs answer the basic questions how, where, and when. Buffalo run fast. We went to the park early. We sat there for a while. Adverbs can also perform bigger jobs and modify a clause or a whole sentence. Of course, we stayed in our car because it wouldn't have been safe to get out. Because adverbs can modify different elements in a sentence, it's no surprise that adverbs can have different positions within a sentence. They can appear at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. If an adverb modifies a single word, it generally sticks close to that word, with little or no separation. Run fast. A very impressive sight. Went to the park early. Sat there. In terms of word order, you'll see these common combinations. Verb plus adverb. Adverb plus adjective. With a smaller number of adverbs, you'll see the combination adjective plus adverb. Other combinations are adverb plus adverb and adverb plus a clause. How can you recognize adverbs? Remember, I said you can't always tell the part of speech by looking at a word. It's true that many adverbs end in ly. These adverbs usually answer the question, how. How do you run? Quickly. How do they talk? Excitedly. So in many cases, we can form adverbs by adding the suffix ly to an adjective. But some adjectives end in ly, so don't make the mistake of thinking that all words that end in ly are adverbs. If I talk about friendly people and lovely landscapes, I'm describing people and landscapes with adjectives. Some adjectives and adverbs share the same form. Fast and slow are two examples. Here's another example. High. Devil's Tower is really high. Hikers can climb high in the Badlands. Note that in informal American English, we also use the words real and good as adverbs. Grammar books may say that's wrong, but you'll hear these uses in everyday conversation. We drove real slow through the park because we didn't want to miss any wildlife. My children can handle long car rides. They do real good on road trips. So what kinds of adverbs are there? There isn't always agreement on groupings or names. Some sources list 4 types of adverbs: manner, place, time, and degree. Others add a 5th type because they distinguish between time and frequency. I'm going to list 7 types of adverbs. I could go up to 8, 9, or even 10. I agree with the approach of combining types of adverbs when it's logical. There's a lot of terminology, but remember, our main goal is to understand function and syntax. Knowing how to use all of these adverbs is more important than remembering the exact names. But we need to use the terminology now to talk about how language fits together. Here's our list of the 7 types of adverbs. First, circumstance adverbs, which include adverbs of manner, adverbs of place, and adverbs of time. Next, we have adverbs of degree. Then, additive and restrictive adverbs. Viewpoint and comment adverbs. And finally, linking adverbs, which are also called conjunctive adverbs. Let's go through these 7 types of adverbs. The first 3 types of adverbs fall into a larger group called circumstance adverbs because they all give information about the circumstances of an action: how, where, when. In other words, adverbs of manner, adverbs of place, and adverbs of time. Adverbs of manner often end in ly: happily, suddenly. Adverbs of place include here, there, and far. They give information about position, direction, and distance. Adverbs of time include now, then, today, often, never. Adverbs of time can give information about frequency and duration. Let's talk about syntax for circumstance adverbs. Adverbs of manner usually follow a verb, but other positions are possible. I grabbed my phone and quickly took a photo. I quickly took a photo. I took a photo quickly. If we have adverbs of place and time together, then place usually goes before time, as in, we got there early. Place and time adverbs usually go at the end, but you'll also see initial positions, especially in fiction and in formal writing. Here lies a hero of our country. May he rest in peace. Here stand four great presidents of our country. Long ago, a beautiful princess lived in a tall tower. Long ago, millions of buffalo roamed the plains. I think adverbs of time and frequency are closely related, so I'm putting them together in one group. Here's a quick note on the syntax for adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency can have an initial, middle, or final position in a sentence. This happens both in speaking and in writing. Sometimes I watch nature documentaries. I sometimes watch nature documentaries. I watch nature documentaries sometimes. Adverbs of frequency follow the verb be. I was never there. I'm occasionally away on business. Recall that certain adverbs of time are used with particular verb forms. Have you ever seen a canyon? I've never felt 100-degree heat. You already told us who the four presidents were. We usually choose destinations with historical or cultural significance. What are you doing now? Circumstance adverbs are often, but not always, single words, and simple adverbs often have comparative and superlative forms, just like descriptive adjectives.
We use the suffixes er and est with those short adverbs that look like adjectives, and then we can use more or less, most or least, with those longer adverbs that end in ly.
Which animal can run faster? Which buffalo can run the fastest? We talked more excitedly after our encounter with the buffalo. Some, but not all, adverbs of place and time can have comparative forms. Consider these examples. We walked far. We walked farther the next day. We arrived early. We should have arrived earlier. So after manner, place, and time, we could look at our fourth type of adverb, adverbs of degree. These adverbs answer the question, how much or to what extent? Adverbs of degree help us talk about how strong or how weak a quality is. When we start talking about degrees, we get into amplifiers and diminishers, or intensifiers and downtoners. Those are just fancy names for adverbs that help us increase or decrease the strength of a word. Adverbs of degree go before adjectives or other adverbs. Here are some common amplifiers. Very big, extremely fast, completely quiet, totally awesome. And these are common diminishers. Somewhat cool, rather dark, slightly challenging, rather steep. Now for our fifth type, additive and restrictive adverbs. They help us add or restrict information.
Additive adverbs can have different positions. Can you find them? Look. Here they are.
Only, just, and especially are examples of restrictive adverbs, which can focus our attention on different parts of a sentence. For that reason, these are also called focus adverbs. These focus adverbs go before the noun they modify. You can take a short walk at Mount Rushmore, but there's only one path open to the public. I loved the wildlife, especially the prairie dogs. As our sixth type, we have viewpoint and comment adverbs, which can help us express things like certainty, opinion, and attitude. Some call these stance adverbs because they can show a person's position on a matter. What you need to know is that viewpoint and comment adverbs modify a whole idea, meaning a clause, a sentence. For that reason, they're also known as sentence adverbs. Viewpoint and comment adverbs often have an initial position. If we write them, then we follow them with a comma. Naturally, we took a lot of photos. Obviously, we had enough photos to make an album. Viewpoint and comment adverbs are common in speaking. They're often added in or even added on. For that reason, they can have a middle and final position in a sentence. We obviously had plenty of photos to make an album. We had plenty of photos to make an album, obviously. If you'd like practice with intonation patterns for introductory phrases or words and phrases that interrupt the flow of a sentence or that we tag on, check out my playlist on intonation. I'll put that link in the video description. Here are some other common viewpoint and comment adverbs. Last but not least, we have our seventh type of adverb, linking adverbs. They connect ideas, and for that reason they go by other names: conjunctive adverbs, transition words, and even sentence connectors. Linking adverbs connect two complete ideas. Their position in a sentence varies, and the punctuation also varies. Take a look. We wanted a closer shot of the prairie dogs. However, the little animals are fast and wary of people. We wanted a closer shot of the prairie dogs. The little animals, however, are fast and wary of people. We wanted a closer shot of the prairie dogs. The little animals are fast and wary of people, however. Here's a list of common linking adverbs. Note this isn't a complete list. Okay, now is a very good time to move on to the next part of speech, prepositions. And that's because you'll see some similarities between prepositions and adverbs. Prepositions are usually short words like at, to, with, from. There are more complex prepositions, for example, in front of, due to. Prepositions must have an object, which is a noun or anything that behaves like a noun. So a preposition plus a noun makes a prepositional phrase. Into the hole. Look at them. Listen to their barking. Prepositional phrases generally function two different ways, as adjectives and as adverbs. When used like adjectives, prepositional phrases answer the question, which one? The president on the right is Lincoln. When prepositional phrases behave like adjectives, they follow the noun they modify. The two presidents in the middle are Jefferson and Roosevelt. When prepositional phrases function like adverbs, they answer the questions how, where, when, and why. We visited Mount Rushmore in the morning and again in the evening. We parked in the main parking lot and then walked to the monument. We got a closer look by taking the Presidential Trail. We wore sunglasses in many of the photos because of the bright sun. When prepositional phrases behave like adverbs, they often go at the end of the sentence as adverbials. We visited Mount Rushmore in the morning. We got a closer look by taking the Presidential Trail. As you may know, sentences can have more than one adverbial. We wore sunglasses in many of the photos because of the bright sun. We can talk more specifically about prepositions of time, reason, location, but I think it's simpler just to remember that prepositional phrases function either as adjectives or as adverbs. Prepositions and their objects can help describe or identify people and things, and these prepositional phrases can also give more information about how, when, where, and why things happen. What's probably the trickiest thing about prepositions is remembering the common combinations they have with verbs, nouns, and adjectives. I cover a lot of these collocations in my playlist on prepositions. I'll put the link in the video description. For now, here's a quick check. See if you know these collocations with prepositions. Guess what? We're ready to talk about the final part of speech, interjections. Yay! I just gave you your first example. Yay is something that we say when we're excited and happy. Interjections are short words, things that we say when we feel a strong emotion like surprise, anger, and happiness. Interjections are mostly spoken, but if we write them, we often follow them with an exclamation point to express that strong, sudden emotion. I have a lesson on interjections. I'll include the link in the video description. For now, let's look at a short list of interjections. Arg. Aw. Crap. Duh. Goodness. Oh no. Presto. Shoot. Ugh. Wow. Yikes. Okay, now let's see if you can use some of those interjections appropriately. Before we end, I want to explain something interesting about the parts of speech. Do you know that we can separate them into open and closed word classes? I'll explain via a little game. Listen. Okay, question 1. Back in the 1980s, my classmates and I would use the word psyched. For example, are you psyched about tonight's game? Yeah, I'm totally psyched. What do you think psyched meant back then? Well, to someone of my generation, psyched means excited. What part of speech is it? An adjective. It's a participial adjective. Psyched, excited. But guess what? My kids told me that no one uses psyched today. Question 2. In my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we sometimes tell children to red up, as in red up the room. That's because the room is messy. So what do you think red up means? To clean up, right? What part of speech is red up? A verb or a phrasal verb. Red up, clean up, tidy up. But outside of Western Pennsylvania, no one says red up. Question 3. Well, the other day my son was in a silly mood and he was talking about how good he was at a game or how good he could be at a game. And I jokingly criticized and said, "Enough of the me fest." I don't think I ever heard me fest before. I don't know why I made it up. It just came out. But how was I using it? Well, I was imagining like this festival where he was celebrating himself. Enough of the me fest. Festival, fest, enough of the me fest. How was I using the made-up word, me fest? Well, it was like a little festival where he was celebrating himself. So me fest, fest, festival. What part of speech? Noun. I was using it like a noun, compound noun or noun phrase, a me fest. You won't find that in the dictionary. It just came out of my mind. Question 4. Here's a word I heard my kids use the other day. Laggy. They complained about a video being laggy. Do you understand the meaning? If there's a lag in a video, it's slow. So lag is a verb. What's laggy? An adjective. You might actually see laggy in a dictionary, but it would be listed as an informal adjective, I think. So nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are open word classes. New words can be added, and sometimes words fall out of use. Some slang never makes it into a dictionary, but there are cases when a popular word or a new meaning of a word becomes officially recognized. The other parts of speech are considered closed word classes because new words are not added easily or relatively often. In past centuries, English speakers used thou and thee to refer to you. Today, we only have the subject and object pronouns you. We'll end our review here. I hope you found it useful to go over all the parts of speech in English. If you know someone who could also benefit from this 3-part lesson, please share the links. Do you know the parts of speech in English? Verbs are actions or states. Eat, sleep, run, live. Nouns are people, places, and things. Girl, boy, teacher, video, lesson. Pronouns are words like I, me, we, us, it. Pronouns can replace nouns. To form any sentence, we need at least a noun or a pronoun and a verb. Adjectives describe or modify nouns. They tell us which one or what kind. Big, helpful, successful. Adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. They answer questions like how or to what degree. Very, really, slowly, extremely. Prepositions are those little words like for, to, with, from. Prepositional phrases give us more information like when, where, how, and why. Determiners include articles, a, and, the. Possessive adjectives, my, his, their. Quantifiers, many, much. And demonstratives, like this, these. Conjunctions are words that help us join ideas, and, but, or, if, because. Interjections are short words that express strong emotion. Ouch! Yikes! Yay! Nouns are people, animals, places, and things. Find the nouns. Students watch her videos. Her job is very rewarding. The lessons help them make progress. Proper nouns are names of specific people, animals, places, and things. Proper nouns start with a capital letter. Find the proper nouns. My middle name is Laura. My hometown is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In this lesson, we'll look at countable nouns like signs and lies, and we'll figure out how a noun like truth is different. Do you already know? Is truth countable or uncountable?
English Grammar with Jennifer. 7 things you should know about uncountable nouns.
There are different names, different grammar terms for nouns we can't count. Uncountable nouns, non-count nouns, mass nouns. Some common signs of lying are uncountable nouns, like laughter, eye contact, or no eye contact. We can't count these things. Uncountable nouns take a singular verb. Here are some examples. Hockey is my family's favorite sport. The water tastes strange. The weather has been unpredictable. Was there any truth to what he said? So did I just give you the answer to an earlier question? Is truth an uncountable noun? Well, often yes. But let's go on to my third point and you'll get a complete answer. Some nouns can be both uncountable and countable. I just gave the example. Was there any truth to what he said? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Both examples are correct. The first is an uncountable noun. The second is countable. It's a plural noun, truths. Specific facts can be called truths. With the countable meaning, we often use the plural noun. The uncountable noun, truth, is more general and abstract. The truth refers to the general concept of what is real and what is true. Truth is also a quality, the quality of being true. The uncountable noun truth takes a singular verb. There's a well-known quote from the American TV series, The X-Files. The famous tagline is, "The truth is out there." Often when we have a noun with both meanings, the uncountable noun is more general or abstract. The countable noun is usually more specific in nature. Here are additional examples of nouns with countable and uncountable meanings. As I list the sentences, see how quickly you can identify the countable and uncountable nouns. Ready? My older sister plans to study law. Laws about cell phone use while driving vary from state to state. Before you get the key to a new home, you have to sign a lot of legal papers. In our school, we have a special bin to recycle paper. A baseball can cause a serious injury if it hits you in the head. Do you enjoy watching baseball? A pair of gold rings is a symbol of marriage. Olivia doesn't like to talk about her 2 previous marriages. I sometimes have just a slice of bread with tea for breakfast. Some breads are healthier than others. Challenge yourself to think about other words with uncountable and countable meanings. Can you see the difference between abstract and specific? Think of words like adventure and video. One way to help identify uncountable nouns is to remember common categories these nouns belong to. A few years back, I had the amazing experience of co-authoring a grammar book, Next Generation Grammar 3, and the appendix has a list of these categories. I'll share some with you. Nouns like law, business, and sales are occupations or fields. In the abstract sense, they're uncountable. What field do you work in? Business? Education? Engineering? Similarly, subjects we study are uncountable nouns. Anthropology, art, history. What did you study in college, or what do you want to study? Nouns like paper, plastic, glass, and wood are materials, and they're uncountable when we use them in the general or abstract sense. What are you wearing right now? Cotton? Silk? Nylon? Names of sports and activities are often uncountable, and they take a singular verb. Baseball, dancing, yoga, hockey. What are your favorite activities? Reading, hiking? We use uncountable nouns to refer to events in our lives or in history. Birth, death, marriage. But if we get specific, we can use these nouns with a countable meaning. For example, we can talk about having multiple marriages, marriages to different people. Nouns that refer to food or drink are countable if we're referring to specific ones or specific types. But if we're using these words in the general sense, then they're uncountable, like bread, tea, cereal, milk. What do you drink at breakfast? Coffee? Tea? Hot cocoa? We can use quantifying phrases to make uncountable nouns countable. There are some quantifiers that you can use with countable and uncountable nouns. Here are some you likely know, but it's good to review them. A lot of stress, a lot of problems. Lots of money, lots of bills. Plenty of time, plenty of people. Some sugar, some lollipops. More salt, more bottles. Hardly any space, hardly any seats. No light, no light bulbs. Any doubt, any answers. Then there are quantifying phrases you can only use with uncountable nouns. See if you know these. A great deal of power. A little pressure. A bit of confidence. Little pride. In English, we also use some very specific words to refer to an amount of something. Let's see if you're familiar with some of these quantifying phrases. I'll share some now and some more on Facebook. Match the phrase to the uncountable noun it can quantify. Make the most logical and natural sounding matches. A bowl of soup, a dose of medicine, a piece of advice, a field of wheat, an act of kindness. Don't confuse uncountable nouns with collective nouns. Uncountable nouns are often abstract or just a mass of something. Air, flower, exercise, science. But a collective noun refers to a group of something, a group that has members. Here are some examples of collective nouns. Committee, government, majority, minority, staff, team. Unlike uncountable nouns, collective nouns can have a singular or plural meaning depending on the context. But in American English, collective nouns are almost always singular.
Truthfully, American English speakers may choose to avoid using collective nouns with a plural verb. See these sentences? Here's how I'd prefer to rewrite them.
So it's safe to say that both uncountable nouns and collective nouns take a singular verb in American English. Do they use the same quantifiers, the same quantifying phrases? No. First of all, we can usually make collective nouns plural. One committee, two committees, several committees. So we can talk about several committees or several teams, but we can't talk about several advices. Advice remains an uncountable noun, no S. Second, collective nouns themselves can help us quantify things. I'll share some examples now and some on Facebook. Match the phrase to the plural noun it can quantify. Make the most common matches. A school of fish, a chain of stores, a pack of wolves, a host of problems. Let me help you gain more practice with uncountable nouns. I'd like to read a text for you. See if you can spot 3 mistakes. I'm not very good at lying. Even if I tell white lie, my face grows tense or I blush. But we all have to admit that the truths hurt sometimes. So it's not always easier to be honest. In the end, I think honesty with a healthy dose of kindness are best. Do you see 3 mistakes? Here they are. Now, do you think we can fix them? Let's try. A lie is a countable noun, so either we need the indefinite article with a singular noun, a white lie, or the zero article with the plural noun, white lies. Truth is a noun with both countable and uncountable meanings. Here I'm referring to the general or abstract concept, so let's take off that plural ending s and use the uncountable noun, the truth, with a singular verb. Lastly, in this sentence, the main subject is honesty, another abstract concept. It's a quality. Don't let the prepositional phrase confuse you. We have only one subject, honesty. Kindness is part of the prepositional phrase. Also, note the use of a quantifying phrase with kindness. How much kindness is needed? A healthy dose, a good amount.
English Grammar with Jennifer. More practice with uncountable nouns.
Let's review the 7 guidelines I shared in my earlier lesson, and along the way, I'll give you some practice. First, there are different grammar terms for nouns we can't count. What are they? Take a look. There are 3 terms you might hear: uncountable nouns, non-count nouns, mass nouns. Second, you need to remember subject-verb agreement. Uncountable nouns take a singular verb. I'll now give you sentences to complete. If the subject is uncountable, use a singular verb. Here are the answers. A. Pretending is not the same as lying. B. Science requires the study of facts. C. Scientists make a prediction before an experiment. D. People sometimes ask questions we don't want to answer truthfully. E. The law punishes those who lie in court. Do you see the 2 sentences with plural nouns as subjects? Here they are. Third, some nouns have uncountable and countable meanings. I'll now show you pairs of sentences. You need to identify which sentence in each pair has the uncountable noun. Everyone needs a little adventure in their lives. A close encounter with wildlife can be an adventure you'll always remember. I like this video because it gives me further practice with tricky grammar. Jennifer teaches English through video. Fresh bread with a slice of cheese is a tasty snack. Brie is a soft French cheese that people spread on bread or crackers. I just showed you nouns with uncountable and countable meanings. To help you identify and remember the difference, let me remind you of my fourth guideline. Uncountable nouns are often used in a general or abstract sense. The countable meaning is usually more specific and concrete. Look at sentences C and D again. The difference is specific versus general, concrete versus abstract. Another clue can be the use of quantifiers. In sentence A, I use a little, and we can only use that with uncountable nouns. In E, there's a quantifying phrase that often combines with uncountable nouns that refer to food, a slice of. Remember that the indefinite article a or an refers to one. Sentence B uses an, so you know I'm using adventure in the countable sense. An adventure, one adventure. Sentence F uses the indefinite article a to refer to a specific kind of cheese, one kind. So it's a countable noun. Fifth, we can place uncountable nouns in common categories, and knowing these categories helps us recognize and understand any uncountable noun. Can you sort some uncountable nouns into groups? There will be 6 groups, and I'll ask you to identify the categories, but please know that this list of categories is not complete. There are definitely more, but let's practice using these 6. Ready to see the answers? Here they are. What are the categories? I'd suggest these labels: materials, events, liquids, occupations, activities, weather. How did you do? Sixth, remember we can use quantifying phrases to make uncountable nouns countable. We'll now practice using several quantifying words and phrases. I'll ask you to make some matches. You'll have to know which quantifying words and phrases combine only with uncountable nouns. Answers: a lot of people, a great deal of concentration. Lots of students, little cooperation. Hardly any mistakes, a bit of modesty. Now let's focus on uncountable nouns only. Make the most logical and natural sounding matches. Answers: a bottle of ketchup, a moment of honesty, a sheet of paper, a game of checkers, a branch of psychology, a clap of thunder. My seventh guideline was, don't confuse uncountable nouns with collective nouns. Do you remember the difference? Remember that a collective noun refers to a group that has parts or members. Examples include committee, staff, family, team. Unlike uncountable nouns, collective nouns can have singular or plural meanings depending on the context. But in American English, collective nouns are almost always singular. Also, collective nouns themselves can help us quantify other nouns. I'll now ask you to match the collective noun to the plural noun it can quantify. Make the most common matches. Answers: a school of fish, a chain of events, a swarm of bees, a pod of dolphins, a pack of lies, a pile of laundry. I bet you can think of other examples with these collective nouns. What's the difference between a word and a phrase? A word is a single piece of language. Cat, girl, sing, singing, beautiful, beautifully, to, from, here. A phrase is a group of two or more words. A beautiful girl, sing beautifully. For me. Phrases aren't complete ideas. They don't have both a subject and a verb. Sometimes we speak in phrases if the rest is understood. What do you see? A pretty cat. There are different kinds of phrases. We can have a noun phrase, a verb phrase, a prepositional phrase, an infinitive phrase, a gerund phrase. There are other kinds of phrases, but remember that no phrase is a complete idea. A clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. Clauses can be short or long. The girl sang. Songs entertain us. Birds are common pets in many countries around the world. Inside a clause, you may find a number of phrases. Some clauses can stand alone. We call them independent clauses. An independent clause is a simple sentence. Other clauses are dependent clauses. We have to join these dependent clauses with an independent clause to form a complete sentence. If you don't know what to do with this, I can show you. Try two short quizzes. Here's the first. Can you identify the phrases and the clauses? Here are the phrases, and here are the clauses. Notice how the clauses each have a subject and a verb. Here's the second quiz. Look at 4 clauses. Which of them are independent clauses? Which of them can stand alone as a complete sentence? A and D are independent clauses. They can stand alone as complete sentences. It's a traditional Chinese dance. I wanted to learn. B and C are dependent clauses. These are adverb clauses. They have to join with independent clauses to form a complete sentence. Do you like to build puzzles? If you do you have a system? First, I flip over all the pieces so I can see what I'm working with. My grandmother taught me to build the edges first. Then I work on one section at a time. What can I say? I like organization. I like patterns. Let's take some time to talk about the parts of a sentence and how they fit together. There's a lot of pleasure when you finally put a puzzle together and see a pretty picture. Maybe you'll feel the same about putting together clear sentences in English.
Learn about sentence structure in English with Jennifer.
I know not everyone loves grammar or thinks grammar is worth studying, but don't let words like clause and direct object scare you. Grammar is an amazing tool, and I'd like to help you learn to use it. Putting a sentence together is like building a puzzle. Put the pieces in the right place and you'll create something solid. The basic element of a sentence is a clause. A clause always has a subject and a verb. That's what makes a complete sentence. In everyday communication, we don't always use complete sentences. That's especially true about texting. But to express a complete idea, we must build a sentence. Do you know what kind of sentences you can build? Often we make a statement, I love puzzles. That's a declarative sentence. Other times we ask a question, do you like to build puzzles? That's an interrogative sentence. Sometimes we make a request or give a command, help! That's an imperative sentence. All sentences have a subject and a verb, even an imperative sentence. The subject you is implied. It's understood. If you want to review the kinds of sentences we can make, watch my video on sentence types according to purpose. We can also classify sentences by their structure. What kind of clauses do they have? Sentences can be short. He's smiling. She's smart. Those are simple sentences with one main clause. The clause is an independent clause because it can stand alone as a complete sentence. Not all simple sentences are short, but if we have one subject and a verb, then it's a simple sentence. Compare. She's smiling. Subject, verb. The beautiful young lady over there is smiling sweetly at us. Subject, verb. Other sentences may have 2 or more clauses joined together. For example, she's smart, but she's very modest. He's smiling because he's happy. These are examples of compound and complex sentences. To learn more, watch my video on sentence types according to structure. In this lesson, we'll mostly focus on simple sentences with a single clause. This will help you understand the parts of a clause. I told you that a clause has a subject and a verb. Remember that the subject can be a noun or anything that behaves like a noun. Vacations can be expensive. My summer vacation was so much fun. It was so much fun. Playing beach volleyball is a summertime activity. We can have compound subjects. For example, hiking and swimming are two inexpensive activities. We can even use a clause as our subject, but that's for another lesson. For example, you can watch my video on embedded questions to understand a sentence like this. What I love most is the sound of the ocean. This is no longer a simple sentence. We have more than one clause. One clause is the subject of another. Clauses that can stand alone and make sense are called independent clauses. For example, I love the sound of the ocean. Clauses that must be joined with another to make sense are dependent clauses. They're dependent on another clause. An example, what I love most is the sound of the ocean. What I love most cannot stand alone. It's dependent on the other clause. What I love most is the sound of the ocean. Remember, there are two basic types of clauses, independent and dependent. Both have a subject and a verb, but only the independent clause can stand alone and make sense. This is the kind of clause we'll focus on. If you'd like to practice identifying dependent clauses, you can visit my website. After the subject comes the predicate. Predicate is just a fancy name for everything that follows the subject. The predicate tells us what the subject does or what the subject is. The predicate contains the verb. Verbs, as you know, express an action or a state. Try this. See if you can identify the subject and the predicate with the verb in each sentence. The whole family traveled to a tropical island. Subject, predicate. There's the verb. Anna, Franco, and many members of their extended family met at the resort. Subject, predicate. Where's the verb? There. They had an amazing time relaxing on the beach and enjoying water sports. Subject, predicate. Where's the main verb? Right there. There's probably no end to how many original sentences we can make in English. However, they all follow patterns, and the number of patterns is limited. There are 5 basic sentence patterns I want to teach you. I'll show you examples of each one. Here they are. Some of you may already be familiar with these patterns, but others may never have seen these sentences before, at least not shown like this. It's okay. I'll do my best to make it easy to understand subjects, verbs, objects, complements, and something called adverbials. It will all make sense by the end. Remember, knowledge is power. If you want to empower yourself by building language skills, go on to the next video. I hope you've watched the first part of this lesson. It's now time to study 5 common sentence patterns. How exactly will knowledge of sentence patterns help you? Is it worth learning? I think so. First, you can create a variety of sentences and not be limited to 1 or 2 patterns each time you speak or write. Second, you can more easily correct sentences because you'll know how sentences are built. You'll understand the parts of a clause and how they fit together. Lastly, you'll have an easier time when you read and come across long sentences. You'll be able to recognize clauses by identifying the subject and the verb. So let's get started.
Learn about sentence structure in English with Jennifer.
The first pattern is the most basic one, subject plus verb. For example, we relaxed. Remember that verbs express an action or a state. Here are some longer examples of this pattern. I haven't been practicing. Henry and his friends are going to be performing. The second pattern adds one more element, subject plus verb plus object, a direct object. For example, they played music. Some verbs take an object. We call these transitive verbs. Direct objects are objects of verbs. Someone or something is acting upon the object, performing on the object. For example, they played music. Played what? Played music. So recall the first pattern with our model sentence, we relaxed. There was no object. Some verbs don't have an object. They don't need one. We call these intransitive verbs. So we have transitive and intransitive verbs. Only transitive verbs have an object. Here's a tip. When you learn a new verb, pay attention to the grammar. Is it transitive or intransitive? A learner's dictionary will tell you. It will show you whether that verb requires an object. But some verbs can have both meanings. It can be both transitive and intransitive. A verb you already know like that is play. The children are playing. The children played a game. Here's a quick note on objects. Objects are nouns or anything that behaves like a noun. This includes pronouns, gerunds, could even be a whole clause, but that's for another lesson. Both sentences, subject-verb and subject-verb-object, can add on one more unit called an adverbial. An adverbial can be a single word, a phrase. It could even be a whole clause, an adverb clause, but that's for another lesson. Here's what you need to know. Adverbials add information. This information answers questions like where, when, why, how, which includes other how questions like how long, how often, how much. So our first pattern, subject plus verb, can become subject plus verb plus adverbial. The children played in the sand. Where? In the sand. Our second pattern, subject plus verb plus object, can become subject plus verb plus object plus adverbial. They sang songs last night. When? Last night. We can have more than one adverbial in a sentence, and adverbials aren't always in a final position. They sang songs on the beach last night. How many adverbials? 2. Where? When? Watch this rewrite. Last night they sang songs on the beach. When you start using more than one adverbial in a sentence, they usually follow an order: manner, place, time. Time usually goes last. But be careful not to make your sentences too long and too wordy. What I understand is that some adverbials are necessary and some are optional.
Let's look at some examples. Tom and his 2 roommates lived there. The party lasted till dawn. I put my name on the waiting list. Would these sentences make sense if we took out the adverbials? No, they're necessary. Now look at these next 2 examples. People danced all night long. I'd like private lessons with Jennifer. I'd argue that these adverbials could be omitted. We'll talk more about terminology in a couple minutes.
The third basic sentence pattern has 3 parts: subject plus verb plus complement. For example, today was fun. Fun is the complement. And we could add an optional adverbial to this pattern. Today was fun as usual. That's subject plus verb plus complement plus adverbial. We talked about transitive and intransitive verbs. There's another group of verbs we need to talk about: linking verbs. Have you heard of those? Linking verbs link or connect the subject to an idea called the complement. We need the complement to fully understand the subject. For example, she's an artist. She's what? An artist. You seem confused. You seem like what? You seem confused. We need the complements to complete the idea, to fully explain the subject. Complements are very often nouns or adjectives. Here's a list of common linking verbs: appear, be, become, feel, look, seem, sound, taste. There are a few others. After these linking verbs, you'll usually see a noun phrase or an adjective phrase. But adverbs and prepositional phrases can also fit this sentence pattern. She's upstairs. She's in her studio. Not everyone agrees on labels. We agree that adverbs and prepositional phrases are adverbials. But can adverbials be complements after a linking verb? I think so. But if the terminology is confusing, then just remember this: we need subject plus linking verb plus more information about the subject. That information is necessary. So we always need more information about the subject after a linking verb. Subject complements are only one type of complement. Let me quickly show you another. Look at this example. She was excited about the party. What pattern does this sentence follow? Well, she was excited. That's subject plus verb plus complement. Excited is an adjective, it's a subject complement. About the party is information that explains her excitement. It explains the adjective. It's an adjective complement. So our sentence is now subject plus verb plus complement plus complement. The first is a subject complement. It links to the subject with a linking verb. And then we have an adjective complement directly after the adjective. So complements define or fully explain another part of the sentence. Adjective complements are very often prepositional phrases. If you'd like to learn more collocations like excited about and afraid of, you can watch my series of videos on prepositions. Our fourth sentence pattern has 4 parts: subject plus verb plus object plus object. How do we have 2 objects? Well, the first is an indirect object, the second is a direct object. It will be clearer when you see an example. We showed our cousins a good time. What did you show? A good time. That's the direct object. Who did we show it to? Our cousins. That's the indirect object. The indirect object is often the one who receives the action. We showed our cousins a good time. Indirect object, direct object. If I tell you a secret, what did I tell? A secret. To who? To you. Tell you a secret. I sang her a song. Sang her a song. Indirect object, direct object. The basic pattern is subject plus verb plus object plus object. We can add an adverbial. Look at these 2 examples. We showed our cousins a really good time last weekend. Subject plus verb plus object plus adverbial. Last weekend, we showed our cousins a good time. Here we have the adverbial at the beginning.
By the way, I now have a more flexible understanding of the subject-verb-object-object sentence pattern. It's easier to identify the 2 objects without any preposition. Here's an example. I gave my friend a birthday gift. What's the verb? Gave. What did I give? A gift. That's the object of the verb, the direct object. But who did I give it to? My friend. That's the second object, an indirect object. So this example is clearly SVOO, subject, verb, object, object. We have the indirect object first and then the direct object. But what if we rewrote the sentence with a prepositional phrase? I gave a birthday gift to my friend. The meaning hasn't changed, but not everyone recognizes this as subject, verb, object, object. Some want to identify the prepositional phrase as something else. Honestly, this is where I stop caring too much about terminology. You can still call it an indirect object or even an adverbial or possibly a complement. In the end, what's important? Clear communication, that's what's important. As long as you understand how the idea can be expressed 2 different ways, then you have 2 variations to choose from. We've talked about subject complements, and I've shown you adjective complements directly after an adjective. Get ready for the fifth sentence pattern. It's subject plus verb plus object complement. Here's an example. I consider that the best trip ever. The best trip ever is the object complement. It explains or defines the object. It directly follows it, and I need that to fully understand. I consider that to be what? The best trip ever. Some sentences require an object complement, like this one. Here's a similar example. We consider him family. Consider him to be what? We consider him family. Here's a nice example. You make each day special. You make each day what? Special. We need the adjective, we need that word as the object complement to explain the object. Was it worth learning these patterns? Well, I want to show you the power of this new knowledge. Let's try an exercise. I'll show you 5 sentences. I want you to find and correct the mistake in each sentence. I know you can do it. Here's the first sentence. What's wrong with it? Put is a transitive verb. It needs an object. The sentence pattern should be sentence, verb, object. You put what on the table? You put it on the table. You put the vase on the table. Here's the second sentence. This sentence has no subject. The basic pattern should be subject, verb, object. Who missed the bus? Put in a subject. This morning I missed the bus. Here's the third sentence. This sentence is missing a verb, a linking verb. The pattern is subject, verb, complement. Let's put in a verb. Music is a beautiful art form. Look at the fourth sentence. This sentence has 2 objects, and they're in the correct order, but if you put the indirect object first, you need to drop that preposition. The pattern is subject, verb, plus indirect object, plus object. What's the full sentence? I sent her a thank you note. Here's the fifth sentence. This one's more challenging. Can you figure out the relationship of all these parts? Identify the subject and the verb. This whole experience has made. Does the verb have an object? Me. Has made me what? We need a complement, an object complement. Subject, verb, object, and object complement. Has made me what? A better person. Remember, the 5 basic sentence patterns are subject, verb, subject, verb, object, subject, verb, complement, subject, verb, indirect object, plus direct object, and sentence, verb, object, and object complement. And we can add adverbials to these patterns.
First, subject-verb. These verbs are intransitive. They have no object. The sun is shining. Next, subject, verb, object. These are transitive verbs.
The object follows the verb. Jennifer teaches English. Kind people experience more joy. Third, we have subject-verb complement. A subject complement follows a linking verb like be or become. It redefines the subject. A subject complement is often a noun or an adjective. Jennifer is a YouTuber. Videos can be educational.
The first type is a simple sentence. It has one complete idea. It has a subject and a verb. Because this complete idea can stand by itself, we call it an independent clause. Let's look at two examples. Jennifer is a teacher. Subject, verb. I learn from online videos. Subject, verb. The second type is a compound sentence. It has two or more independent clauses that are joined by a coordinating conjunction. The most common coordinating conjunctions are and, but, or, so. In a compound sentence, then, we have independent clauses, complete ideas that could stand alone as two simple sentences. Instead, we join them together with a conjunction. The conjunction and expresses addition, but a contrast, or alternatives, so a result. Let's look at some examples. Here's the first. Jennifer is a teacher, but she doesn't work at a school. You see, we have two independent clauses. We join them together with our coordinating conjunction. The practice is to use a comma before the conjunction. Now sometimes, especially in informal writing, you'll see writers use but at the beginning of a sentence. It's not a practice that's generally recommended, but it is acceptable if not overused. Let's look at another example. Jennifer is a teacher, and she works online. You see, we have two independent clauses. We join them together with comma and conjunction. I will note that the comma before and the comma before or are not consistently used. I see more consistency with a comma before but and so. But I recommend that we use comma conjunction to form a compound sentence. Let's look at one more example. Jennifer is a teacher and she works online, so she depends on the internet. In this compound sentence, how many independent clauses do you see? Hopefully you see 3. Jennifer is a teacher, she works online, she depends on the internet. And we have 2 coordinating conjunctions to join these clauses together. The third type is a complex sentence, which has one and only one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Dependent clauses have a subordinating conjunction. If we start looking at examples, you'll understand better. Here's our first. If you post a question, I will answer it. I will answer it is the independent clause. It has a subject and verb. It's a complete idea that can stand alone. If you post a question is a dependent clause. It has a subject and verb, but this idea cannot stand alone. It depends on the main clause for meaning. the general practice is to use a comma to separate the clauses when the dependent clause appears first. Here's a second example. You should pay attention to punctuation when you write. Where's our independent clause? Here, you should pay attention to punctuation. When you write is the dependent clause. When is a subordinating conjunction. All of this depends on our main clause. The fourth and last type is a complex compound sentence. It has at least one dependent clause and two independent clauses. Now I'd like to share a tip. Remember that very long sentences can be difficult to read. A long sentence can usually be broken into two. So although you can use complex compound sentences, I don't suggest using a lot of them within one text. Here's an example. It is good to review lessons, and that is easy to do when you use an online resource like this one. Do you see the independent clauses? There must be two or more. Here are the two independent clauses. Our dependent clause is at the end. A comma and coordinating conjunction join our independent clauses. A subordinating conjunction appears in the dependent clause. I'd like to show you one more example. Let's look at a complex compound sentence with an adjective clause. Here we go. People who learn to write clearly become strong communicators, and that is a good thing to be when you are applying for a job. Take a look and find two dependent clauses. These clauses have a subject and verb, but they're not ideas that can stand alone. Here they are. Who learn to write clearly when you are applying for a job. The first is an adjective clause, the second is an adverb clause, but they're both dependent on the rest of the sentence. Take a good look at the punctuation used as well. Let's use a quiz to review and make sure you can identify the four sentence types. Number 1. Learning a language can be fun. What kind of sentence is this? It's a simple sentence with one independent clause. 2. Progress happens when you study regularly. What kind of sentence is this? This is a complex sentence. We have one independent clause and one dependent clause. 3. Jennifer studied Japanese, but she can't remember much of it. What kind of sentence is this? This is a compound sentence. We have two independent clauses, and they're joined by comma conjunction, a coordinating conjunction. 4. Jennifer studied Japanese at one point, but she can't remember much of it because it was such a long time ago. What kind of sentence is this? Do you know? This is a complex compound sentence. We have two independent clauses and one dependent clause. A coordinating conjunction joins the independent clauses, and a subordinating conjunction appears in our dependent clause.
Find the mistake and fix it. I see from time to time my old neighbors. What's wrong? The verb see has an object, my old neighbors. In English, try not to separate a verb from its object. Say, I see my old neighbors from time to time. Can I schedule for Monday the appointment? Say, can I schedule the appointment for Monday? The object of schedule is appointment. Don't separate them. I shared with my best friend my secret. Say, I shared my secret with my best friend. Put adverbs of frequency after the verb be in the simple present and simple past. She's never late. He's always nice to me. Put adverbs of frequency before other verbs in the simple present and simple past. I seldom forget people's names. Our team rarely lost a game last season. Place adverbs of frequency between a helping verb and the main verb. They're always traveling somewhere. I'll never lie to you. Technology doesn't always work. Are you always on time? Do you sometimes stay up late? Are you always doing something on your phone? I love chocolate. Chocolate is the object of the verb love. Direct objects receive the action. What do I love? Chocolate. Her favorite food is yogurt. Yogurt is the subject complement. It's equal to the subject, her favorite food. Subject complements redefine the subject, and they're often nouns or adjectives. They always follow linking verbs like be or become. I teach online. I teach on social media. In both of these sentences, I use an adverbial to answer the question where. It may be a single word or a phrase. Adverbials add information, often about manner, place, or time. What's the difference between adverb and adjective clauses, and why should you care? Well, the world is not going to end if you don't know the difference, but communication can become easier if you learn how to put ideas together clearly in English. Hi, I'm Jennifer. Let's talk about the kind of grammar that can help you in both speaking and in writing. This video will help you understand the difference between adverb and adjective clauses, which we use all the time. We speak with words, and we group words together different ways. Check out my video on words, phrases, and clauses. Basically, a clause has a subject and a verb. We have dependent and independent clauses. This is important. Independent clauses can stand alone as a complete sentence. For example, I enjoy public speaking. Live talks can be virtual or in person. Do you see the subject and verb in each sentence? I enjoy. Live talks can be. These are complete sentences. These are independent clauses. A dependent clause must join with an independent clause to form a complete sentence. Together, they form a complex sentence. I enjoy public speaking because it's a way to have a positive impact. Which is the independent clause, the main clause? I enjoy public speaking. Because it's a way to have a positive impact is a dependent clause. It could be a short answer to a question, but it's not a complete sentence on its own. It's a dependent clause. It's dependent on the main clause. Dependent clauses written all by themselves are called fragments. In informal writing, they're fine. But in academic and professional writing, fragments are generally avoided.
Fragments are considered mistakes on standard language exams. Quick quiz. Can you identify the fragments? Building a healthy mindset. I speak on mindset. A healthy mindset for school and for life. Although it's the shortest, B is the only complete sentence because it has a subject and a verb. A is a gerund phrase. C is a noun phrase followed by a prepositional phrase. So are fragments always wrong? No. When are they okay? In informal writing, like in texting, and in conversation as a response to a question. For example, are you still meeting with us? Yes. When? After I get something to eat. The full idea is understood from context. I'll meet you after I get something to eat. If there's not enough context, you should use a full sentence. This is why you should know the difference between dependent and independent clauses. Adverb and adjective clauses are two examples of dependent clauses. Do you remember the difference between adverbs and adjectives? Quick quiz. What do adverbs and adjectives do? Adverbs answer questions like how, where, when, why, and to what degree. Adjectives answer questions like which one, what kind, and whose. Adverb and adjective clauses are simply larger structures that answer the same questions. Adverb clauses can give us information about manner, place, time, reason, and more. Adjective clauses can help us identify or describe a person or thing. Adverb clauses can go before or after the main clause. I enjoy public speaking because it's a way to have a positive impact. Because talks can be virtual or in person, I need to be comfortable doing both. When the dependent clause comes first, it's followed by a comma. Adjective clauses always follow the noun or pronoun they're modifying, that is, the person or thing they're identifying or describing. For example, what's a keynote? A keynote is a featured talk that either sets the tone for an event or delivers a central message. Do you see the adjective clause? Adjective clauses start with relative pronouns, that, which, who, whom, whose. Again, they follow the head noun, the noun they're modifying, which means the person or thing they're identifying or describing. How do you know which relative pronoun to use? Basically, which is for things. That can be for things or people, and then who, whom, and whose are only for people. There's a whole lesson on relative pronouns, and you can check it out in my playlist on adjective clauses. Try another quick quiz. Can you identify all the adjective clauses? I'll show you 5 complex sentences. A keynote speaker is usually someone who has expertise in a field. Athletes who no longer play professionally often become motivational speakers. A person whose life stories inspire others can become a successful speaker. A story that illustrates a life lesson is perfect for a keynote. Ideally, we all want a job which we both love and have a talent for. We also have relative adverbs, which are often included in the list of relative pronouns because they also help us identify certain things. Relative adverbs are where, when, and why. They're used in place of a preposition and a relative pronoun, like in which, at which, for which. Try this quiz. Can you rephrase the adjective clauses using where, when, and why? Tell me the main reason for which you do this kind of work. Tell me the main reason why you do this kind of work. That's the site at which he delivered his famous speech. That's the site where he delivered his famous speech. I'll always remember the day on which I got my first speaking gig. I'll always remember the day when I got my first speaking gig. It should be easy to remember that where is for places, when is for time, and why is for reasons. Some of you may wonder when we need to use a comma before an adjective clause. You can watch my full playlist on adjective clauses to find out and to practice. Right now, at least you know that adjective clauses start with a relative pronoun or relative adverb, and they follow the noun they're identifying or describing. If you've already learned something useful, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you. Let's talk about adverb clauses. There are different kinds, and there's a long list of adverbs that help us form these clauses. We can review the most common ones. They have a fancy grammar term, subordinating conjunctions. Conjunctions are connectors. They join ideas together. Subordinating conjunctions are used in subordinate clauses, dependent clauses. Don't worry too much about the terminology. Just remember that these adverb clauses need to join with a main clause to form a complete sentence, a complete idea. And these adverb clauses are giving us information, for example, about manner, place, time, and reason. Try this last quiz. Choose the correct words, the correct conjunctions to form adverb clauses. I'll show you 3 sentences. Since I'd like to get booked, I'm spreading the word that I'm available for keynotes. Here, since is explaining the reason. It's like because. Next. If you send an inquiry through my website, I'll respond as soon as I can. If forms a conditional clause, and then as soon as is a time clause. Here's the final sentence. After I deliver a talk, I'm eager for feedback so that I can learn and improve. After forms a time clause, and so that expresses purpose. Hi there, I'm Jennifer from English with Jennifer. And did you know I just gave you your first example of a subject complement? I am Jennifer. We have I as the subject, am is the linking verb, and then Jennifer. Jennifer is equivalent to I. Who am I? I'm Jennifer. Jennifer defines who I am, It's the subject complement. A subject complement is necessary because it completes the subject. The sentence structure is subject plus verb plus complement. Subject complements are often nouns, proper nouns and common nouns. I am Jennifer. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher and a mother. I'm a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We can also, though not often, have a pronoun as a subject complement. Do you know the polite way to confirm your identity over the phone? Someone asks, "May I speak to Jennifer, please?" Speaking, or this is she, subject, linking verb, complement. How would you complete these sentences? You may hear the term predicate nominative or predicate nominative, which is hard to say and hard to remember. It just means that the subject complement is a noun. So guess what a predicate adjective is? It's a subject complement that is an adjective. You're smart. Social media is useful. Social media is incredibly useful. The subject complement can be a single word adjective or an adjective with other words modifying it. Whether it's long or short, this kind of subject complement describes the subject. All subject complements follow a linking verb. The most common linking verb is be, but there are others, including become, appear, seem, look, smell, taste, sound, grow, get. How would you complete these sentences? The soup smells delicious, wonderful, yummy. Aaron looks upset, worried, distressed. When you do the same thing day in and day out, it's easy to grow bored, restless. Besides nouns and adjectives, it's also possible to see other kinds of subject complements. Take a look. His favorite hobby is gaming. Her dream is to visit Alaska. My most embarrassing moment was when I showed up at the wrong dinner party.
Prepositional phrases can also be subject complements, especially set phrases or idioms. For example, the patient was in a coma. I was feeling under the weather. She must be out of her mind. You seem a little out of it.
How would you finish these sentences? Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer from English with Jennifer. I'm quite certain that many of you love movies as much as I do. The question is, which ones? I like watching different genres, and I've named some of my favorite movies and other grammar lessons. You can find out my top 5 family movies and learn about prescriptive and descriptive grammar.
You can learn my top 5 disaster movies and study prepositions. You can also discover my top 10 romantic comedies while reviewing the modal verb would. I'll put all links in the video description. In this lesson, let's review gerunds and infinitives. I've covered this topic a few times in my grammar playlist, but I know that students of all levels can make mistakes when choosing between a gerund, like doing, and an infinitive, like to do. So additional practice has value. Let's keep the lesson interesting and meaningful. We'll practice the target grammar while I share another set of 10 favorite movies. There will be a total of 40 questions, okay? These movies are all from the 1990s. I'm not calling them the best movies of the 1990s, but I've enjoyed watching all of them more than once. We'll see if you're familiar with any of them. Number 10, Contact. Contact stars Jodie Foster, and the movie could be categorized as sci-fi, but you don't see any aliens. Not really. This is more of a drama that makes us examine ourselves as a species and our desire to explore, discover, and connect. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms. One. Dr. Ellie Arroway has always wished to make contact with others from distant places. 2. She hopes to make contact with aliens by using massive radio telescopes. 3. She imagines receiving a signal sent from a distant star system. 4. In the movie, such a signal is received, but then we watch how scientists, the government, and ordinary people choose to respond. Number 9, Ghost. I can't really say this is a favorite movie of mine, but I really love Whoopi Goldberg in this film. Without her, there simply wouldn't be any big laughs. I skip over some scenes just to watch her parts. As the psychic Oda Mae Brown, Whoopi Goldberg gives a very memorable performance. The movie also stars Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms. Five. Sam Wheat, a young banker, is not prepared to leave this world when he's shot and killed in a robbery. 6. When he discovers that his own friend and colleague planned to have him robbed, he feels he must warn his girlfriend Molly of the danger. Only he needs help since he's a ghost. 7 and 8. Oda Mae Brown, a psychic who has the talent to communicate with ghosts, certainly doesn't feel like putting herself in danger, but Sam convinces her to help him. Number 8, the American President. Some Hollywood actors do a really great job in the role of the American President. Michael Douglas is very likable and convincing in this movie. Imagine being the head of state as a widower and then falling in love while constantly being in the public eye. This film has an amazing cast, including Annette Bening, Martin Sheen, and Michael J. Fox. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
Nine. Is there any law that forbids dating if you're the President of the United States and single? 10. What if the President happens to fall in love with a lobbyist, that is, someone he works with, or even against? 11. When President Shepard invites Sidney Ellen Wade to dinner, it's actually a state dinner at the White House. She agrees to go, and the world takes interest in their first date. 12. The president faces great difficulty as he attempts to keep his political and personal lives separate.
Number 7, Dave. This is another movie about the American president, but this time an unusual chain of events puts an ordinary citizen in the White House. What would you do if you could take over the U.S. government? What changes would you make? Kevin Kline brings great energy and humor to this film, and he's joined by big-name actors like Sigourney Weaver and Ben Kingsley. I really enjoy this political comedy. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
"13. Would you dare to step in for the president if government officials asked you to? 14. The White House Chief of Staff hires Dave Kovic, a small business owner, to double for the president at an event so that the real president can go off and meet a woman on the side. 15. The truth is that Dave appears to be a much better person and leader. 16. Dave intends to use this unexpected opportunity to make positive changes.
Number 6, The Thing Called Love. River Phoenix had a short but amazing acting career. He was incredibly talented, both as an actor and as a musician. We're lucky to have this romance drama with his contributions. River didn't play the main character, but his musical talent is full on display. The movie is about a group of young people struggling in the country music industry. It stars Samantha Mathis, Sandra Bullock, before she became really famous, and Dermot Mulroney. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
"17. Miranda Presley has moved from New York to Nashville, Tennessee, and she would like more than anything to make it big as a country music songwriter. 18. She meets James Wright, a talented musician, and she can't easily deny feeling attracted to him. 19. James seems to be a step ahead in gaining success, and this is hard for Samantha to acknowledge. 20. The one thing all the young musicians have in common is that they don't mind taking risks in their careers or in love. Number 5, The Truman Show. This movie stars Jim Carrey, so we know there's humor, but it's much more than a comedy. The drama in this film can nearly make you cry. It's about a man who's grown up while not knowing he's the star of a TV show that films every second of his life. Is this entertainment? Is this morally wrong? The concept provokes serious thought. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms. (21 and 22). No one would appreciate having every moment of their life on camera, so why would a TV show encourage viewers to invade someone's privacy as a form of entertainment? 23. Ed Harris plays the executive producer of The Truman Show, and he refuses to see his work as anything other than beautiful and genuine. 24. The show has given Truman security, a job, and a wife, but it has failed to give him what all humans need: the freedom to choose one's own destiny. Number 4, Pleasantville. This is quite an original concept that goes beyond a mere comedy. When two modern teenagers find themselves in a 1950s TV show, they have the choice to either live a simple, predictable existence in black and white, or to add complexity and move into a more colorful world. This fantasy film stars Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon as brother and sister, David and Jennifer. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms. (25) The creators of this film proceeded to use color with great care. 26. To see color and appear in color, the characters are required to undergo a personal transformation and lose their innocence. 27. The characters in the TV world can't resist learning about the real world from David and Jennifer. The power of knowledge, however, can come with a burden. 28. The residents of Pleasantville are forced to admit that being more vulnerable actually makes their relationships more special. Number 3, My Girl.
This is what we call a coming-of-age story because the main character, an 11-year-old girl, faces some difficult challenges that force her to mature and take a step closer to adulthood. Dan Aykroyd and Jamie Lee Curtis play the adults in this film, but the kids are the true stars. Anna Chlumsky plays Veda, and Macaulay Culkin plays her best friend. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
"29. Veda has grown up in a funeral home with her widowed father, and she struggles to understand death. 30. To complicate matters, the father and daughter do not often discuss losing Veda's mother in childbirth. 31. Thankfully, Veda has Thomas J., her only friend, who deserves to be called a hero because he offers constant kindness and understanding, though he doesn't always receive the same in return. 32. Veda also begins to learn about love as she sees her father open his heart to his new makeup artist. Note we can use the gerund as well. Veda also begins learning about love.
Number 2, Meet Joe Black. I admit having a celebrity crush on Brad Pitt. In this movie, he's breathtakingly beautiful. In this fantasy drama, Brad Pitt plays Death, and Anthony Hopkins is the man Death is currently visiting. Some dislike the movie, but I think the acting by the entire cast is phenomenal. The film has depth. Some scenes can bring you to tears as Death discovers firsthand, for the first time, what being human is really like. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
"33. Nearly everyone would avoid meeting death, but what if death took human form and literally walked into your life? 34. Death offers to give Bill Parrish, a successful businessman, a few more days of life in exchange for learning what it means to be human. 35 and 36. Death soon learns that the most precious part of being human is to love and be loved in return. But because he must finish doing his job, he also discovers that love involves making sacrifices.
Number 1, Heart and Souls. This is another film that falls into more than one category: fantasy, comedy, and drama. There are plenty of laughs with Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as a man who happens to have 4 ghosts following him around all his life. The 4 died in a bus crash and became his guardians on the night of his birth. Help me finish these sentences. Choose the correct verb forms.
37. Thomas Riley is all grown up, but he can recall having imaginary playmates as a child. 38. He's shocked to discover they weren't part of his imagination at all. Now the ghosts have reappeared and expect him to help them resolve unfinished business in their past lives. 39. Thomas would gladly continue living his busy, unfulfilling life. Thomas would gladly continue to live his busy, unfulfilling life. 40. In truth, Thomas has neglected to make room in his life for friendship and love. So before leaving this world, his guardians teach him this important lesson.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer from English with Jennifer. It's almost Thanksgiving, and that means the winter holiday season has pretty much started here in the US. Our stores are filled with Christmas trees. Recently, I went to a few holiday fairs to support local artists and organizations. There was red and green everywhere. I even saw Santa Claus. I don't enjoy celebrating holidays too early, but I have to admit that all the decorations help me get in the holiday spirit. A viewer recently asked me about nouns versus gerunds. It's an interesting question. If gerunds behave like nouns, why do we have both? For example, why do we have these pairs of words? Celebrating, celebration. Decorating, decoration. Thanking, thanks. First of all, let's remember that gerunds are formed from verbs. We take the base verb and add ing. Celebrate, celebrating. Decorate, decorating. Then we can take the gerund and use it like a noun. Celebrating holidays is important in my family. A single gerund subject or a gerund phrase as a subject takes a singular verb. I don't like celebrating too early. A special tradition is decorating the Christmas tree. So gerunds can do what nouns do. Gerunds can be subjects, objects, and complements. One difference is that we don't usually make gerunds plural. That's something we do with nouns. Nouns can be countable or uncountable. Countable nouns have singular and plural forms. For example, we can talk about different kinds of celebrations. Do you know where I see more of a difference between nouns and gerunds? In meaning. For example, a celebration is an event. Celebrating is an activity. What about dance as a noun? And the gerund dancing? Well, does it sound more natural to say, I enjoy dance, or I enjoy dancing? If you want to focus on the activity, you enjoy dancing, right? We enjoy doing activities. In contrast, maybe you do enjoy dance. Talking about dance generally or abstractly refers to the art form. A person can study dance or different dance styles. So gerunds often refer to activities, but they might also refer to a process. Buying a Christmas tree is not that easy because a number of choices have to be made. So the process of buying isn't easy. Although I just said that an uncountable noun like dance can be used in an abstract way, a countable noun, a singular noun, can be used to refer to a single instance. In high school, I was invited on a special date. I went to my first Christmas dance when I was 15. The dance was an annual event, and I'm referring to the one time I went. It's a specific instance. In contrast, when I say I enjoy dancing, I'm referring to the activity and the experience in general. Consider these examples. I made an important discovery at that dance. Discovering that I could easily wear high heels with a tall guy was nice. Which word in bold refers to something specific, something countable? Which word in bold refers to an experience? The noun discovery is countable. One discovery, many discoveries. Making a discovery is like coming to a realization. It's one instance. The gerund discovering is referring to my experience, and it was a nice experience. So gerunds can refer to an activity, a process, or an experience. But please note these are only guidelines, not rules. There are always exceptions. For example, the researchers shared their findings. Their findings means their results, their specific discoveries. I'd like to invite you to take a quiz. Let's find out if you understand when to use a noun and when to use a gerund.
One. At the holiday fair, I saw many decorations. 2. If you enjoy decorating for the holidays, then now is the time to go shopping and buy lights and ornaments. 3. The weather is beautiful. Let's take a walk. 4. They say walking is good for your health. 5. My day includes a few walks with the dog. 6. I prefer swimming in small lakes. The ocean can be dangerous. 7. Let's go for a swim before the beach gets crowded. 8. I need at least 7 hours of sleep. 9. Sleeping for too long can make you feel unfocused. 10. Layla's travels have taken her all over the world. 11. Traveling doesn't have to be expensive. Travel is also acceptable. 12, 13, and 14. Don't make the mistake of friending everyone you meet on Facebook. Why do you need 500 friends? Do you have time to nurture your friendship with that many people? 15. Everyone could use a good friend in difficult times. That one person can make all the difference.
How did you do? Would you like another challenge? Choose one of these pairs of words, create your own examples, and share them in the comments. Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer from English with Jennifer. Do you like getting compliments? What would you like to hear someone say? What would make you feel good? You're awful at English. You're awfully good at English. Personally, I'd never dream of telling someone that they're bad at anything because every one of us has room for improvement, right? You're here, you're studying with me, so you're already on your way to speaking better English. My compliment to you is, you're awfully good at English. Awful by itself means bad. Awful or awfully before an adjective means very or really. You're awfully good. It's awful expensive. It means very or really. It's a strange difference in meaning, right? Would you like to know other words in American English with strange differences in meaning? Stick around and you'll learn some. I want this to be a super useful, highly effective, and crazy good lesson. There are different kinds of adverbs in English. The first kind you probably learned were adverbs of manner. They answer the question how. Talk loudly, walk fast, dance well. You also learned adverbs of frequency when you learned how to answer the question how often. I often forget how old I am. I never get up before 5. Now we're going to focus on adverbs of degree. You learned 2 of them when you learned how to make comparisons. You learned more and less. For example, someone can feel more confident or less confident when they speak English. Hopefully after this lesson, you'll feel more confident. This refers to higher and lower degrees. We're going to study and practice 2 groups of adverbs of degree, intensifiers and downtoners. Intensifiers are adverbs of degree that increase the strength of a word. I'm sure you already use the adverb very a lot. Extremely is another useful adverb used in many different contexts. I think parkour is very exciting, but also extremely dangerous. The intensifiers so and really are used a lot in conversation. Potato chips are so unhealthy, but really, really good. Note in very informal English, you may hear real used as an adverb, as an intensifier. Someone might say, oh, the food was real good. I don't recommend this use, but be ready to hear it and understand it. When we use intensifiers in conversation, we can use our voice for emphasis. You can hear that long vowel sound in the stressed syllable, as in, so unhealthy, very exciting, really good. We also double some intensifiers or use them in combination. Very, very expensive, really, really nice, so very good. And in conversation, we can use these combinations, good and, nice and, to intensify common adjectives. Professional dancers make all the moves look nice and easy. Everything they do is nice and smooth. Blend some fresh fruit with fruit juice,
yogurt or coconut milk. Freeze the mixture overnight, and then your frozen fruit popsicles will be good and ready to eat the next day. So nice and easy means very easy. Nice and smooth means very smooth. You can't make this kind of phrase with any adjective, but some combinations are common. Nice and easy, nice and smooth, nice and slow, nice and handy, nice and clean. Good and ready could mean very ready or completely ready. Completely is another intensifier. It suggests that something is the most it can possibly be. For example, I was completely confused. I didn't understand anything. Completely is like totally and absolutely, 100%. 2 also falls into the category of intensifiers, but remember that 2 means that a quality has gone beyond some acceptable limit. Honesty is good, but some people are too honest and say everything they think. 2 can be used for criticism. Someone can be too harsh or too judgmental. If we're being critical, we can use the adverb how in reaction to someone's behavior. For example, how rude, meaning very rude. That was very offensive. But we can also use how if we're pleasantly surprised. How sweet, meaning very sweet. Let's test your familiarity with other intensifiers used in conversation. Choose the adverb that sounds most natural in the situation. 1. I think I've changed my mind. Don't worry, we'll be perfectly safe. Perfectly safe means completely safe. 2. You're going to quit? You're not serious, are you? I'm dead serious. I hate this job. Dead serious means absolutely serious. 3. Am I calling too late? Not at all. Not at all means it's completely fine. It's not too late. 4. Where are you? I don't know. I'm totally and utterly lost. You can say totally and utterly or totally and completely lost. 5. Why are you mad? Because that was so not fair. So not fair means that was totally unfair. If intensifiers strengthen a quality, what do you think downtoners do? You may know the expression tone it down. For example, a friend puts on makeup and asks for your opinion. I'm trying a new look. What do you think? You say, it's fun, it's bold, but maybe for work you should tone it down, meaning use less. Remember this example when we talk about downtoners. Downtoners are adverbs that lessen or weaken a quality. Let's go back to giving compliments for a moment. You just gave a presentation. Which compliment would you prefer to hear? That was good. That was rather good. Neither is bad, but personally, I'd want to hear the first. That was good. Rather good means somewhat good. It's not up there with very. Rather is less intense.
Rather good could suggest slightly better than expected. Rather and slightly are common downtoners.
Let's remember that adverbs modify other words. More specifically, adverbs modify adjectives, verbs, and other adverbs. There are even adverbs that can modify whole sentences. Intensifiers and downtoners can modify adjectives and adverbs, but more often we use them with adjectives, so those are the combinations I'm focusing on here in this lesson. But I do want you to be able to recognize intensifiers and downtoners before other adverbs. For example, news reporters talk extremely fast. Student drivers drive rather slow.
Let's see if you're familiar with other downtoners. I'm going to mix up some intensifiers with words and phrases that tone down a quality. Can you sort these phrases into two groups? Words that express a higher degree and words that express a lower degree. Here's how I'd sort them.
As promised, here are 4 intensifiers that have a surprising change in meaning. Crazy doesn't mean insane. Super doesn't mean excellent. Stupid doesn't mean dumb or unintelligent. Wicked does not mean evil. These words simply mean very or really.
You won't find these words on every list of intensifiers and downtoners because, first of all, not all sources agree. Second, many of these are very informal and used only in casual conversation. Personally, I didn't know that the word wicked meant very until I moved to New England. Then it seemed like every statement of praise and every complaint had the word wicked. A wicked hot day, a wicked good game, wicked hard work. So some informal adverbs may be limited to a geographical region, or perhaps they're used more within a certain age group. For example, I'd forgotten about stupid good. I don't use it, but some people do. I asked my 15-year-old son to help me come up with a list of informal ways to say very good, and he recalled that one. Stupid good means very good. And don't forget, there's a whole category of profane words. I don't drop F-bombs with any frequency, but when I get emotional, I may use a close substitute, like freaking. It's freaking cold out there. Freaking can function like an intensifier, meaning very. Freaking is far less offensive than the F word. One last note is that we can use adverbs to be more polite by being less direct. Downtoners overlap with a whole category of words that allow us to be vague in English. We can choose to be less precise and less direct to avoid offense. We call this hedging. It's a topic worthy of another video, so for now I'll limit myself to a couple of examples.
Your speech is too long. You need to make it shorter. Your speech is quite long. Perhaps you can make it slightly shorter? It's really late. I need to leave now. It's rather late. I should leave pretty soon.
Do you feel the difference in certainty and politeness? I hope the lesson was very useful and rather interesting. Please like and share the video with others who'd like to feel more confident and sound more natural in English. Congratulations on making it to the end of this masterclass on grammar. If you'd like the chance to put your knowledge into use,
please join the English with Jennifer community on Patreon as a lifelong learner. This is where we practice all skills for confident, effective communication. The link is in the video description. Thanks for watching and happy studies.